and love is in the air. But before you say I do at the altar, do you know the law that governs marriage? Catch this and more on Legal Matters on YPA TV with me, Cancionissima Gloria. See you there. Everyone, and welcome back to the show where we talk about all things legal. All the people where, if it's your first time here, you're most welcome. And please subscribe and share this. Please comment. We thank you, everyone who views this show, who comments, who takes their time to at least write a comment somewhere and share with their friends. We thank you so much, and we appreciate you for joining us here on the show of Legal Matters with me, Cancionissima Gloria. So we have talked about several topics so far. We've talked about land law. We've looked at the employment law. So today, since it's a month of love, we're going to talk about everything love, because love is in the air. I believe for most of you out there, you're planning to propose to your loved one, or you're there setting your date of marriage. So today, we're going to talk about all things love and marriage. Yes, thank you for coming. So today on our show, we're going to look at the Marriage Act. Yes, we're going to look at the Marriage Act, and we're going to talk about the law that governs marriage. If you're out there and you didn't know that marriage is governed by the law, we have so many laws that handle marriage, that govern marriage. Yes. So here we can look at the Constitution itself, the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. We also have the Marriage Act. Yes, we have the Divorce Act, for those of you who didn't know. We have very many categories of laws that handle marriage. Yes, so for today, we're going to look at the Marriage Act. So if you're out there and you're planning to propose to your loved one, you're planning to say I do at the altar, today this is your show. So, marriage. What are we going to look at in marriage? Marriage, for starters, we have to know what is marriage. Yes. And marriage is defined as, if you look at the case of Hyde versus Hyde, which is a famous case, it defines marriage as the voluntary union between one man and one woman to the exclusion of all the others. In other words, if you're one man, you're one woman, and you decide to enter a marriage, it's more like a contract where you consent, it's consensual. This sort of contract has to come with both parties coming, agreeing to this, consenting to this sort of marriage. So it's more like a consensual contract between these two parties, and these two parties are one man and one woman. Yes, the exclusion of others. In other words, for it to be actually recognized as a valid marriage, you have to be one man and one woman. So keep that in mind. So we've defined what marriage is. So if you're out there and you're in this sort of relationship where you're still seeing other people, in other words, that's not really a marriage. A marriage is where you both parties agree to be in this sort of relationship to the exclusion of all the other people. So keep watch of that. And then who can marry? Maybe out there you're 12 years old, maybe out there and you're 20, or you may be 50. So we want to know today, who can marry? So in the Constitution of Uganda, that's under Article 31 of the Constitution, it clearly says that a man and woman above 18 years of age can marry. Yes, so the Constitution itself gives you the right to be legally married. In other words, you have to be 18 years and above. So if you're 15 years, you're 14 years, please first hold on and get to the consensual age, which is 18 years and above, for you to say that now I'm married. In other words, you can't say that you're entering a valid marriage if you're below the age of 18 years old. So keep that in mind. For someone to recognize that you're a married person, you have to be 18 years and above. And another thing is, for you to be recognized as a legally married person, you have to be a man and a woman. So in Uganda, we do not allow marriages between the same sexes. So in other words, you have to be a man and woman of the opposite sex for you to be recognized, for it to be recognized as a valid marriage. Yes. So in other words, you look out for the fact that you're 18 years and above. Yes. And you're also a man, as the law defines a man and a woman. In other words, you're not allowed to get married to a fellow man, or you're not allowed to get married to a fellow woman. So please watch out for that. And yes, so we're going to look at the different types of marriages in Uganda. So in Uganda, we have different categories of marriages. And here we have the example of a monogamous marriage. We also have a polygamous marriage. And under the monogamous marriage is where we recognize the civil marriage and the church marriages. Yes. In other words, in these kinds of marriages, you're only going to find one man and one woman. You're not going to look at multiple partners in this sort of marriages. You're only looking at one woman and one man. So when I talk about a marriage being monogamous, I'm talking about a civil marriage or a church marriage. Those are the marriages that are legally recognized under the monogamous marriage. So when you look at the polygamous marriages, here we are looking at the Islamic marriages. I'm sure most of you are Islamic brothers and sisters. You're aware that a man in this sort of marriage can have more than one wife. They can have 1, 2, 3, or 4 partners or wives legally, and this is recognized under the Islamic marriage. So I'll invite a person who is legally married under the Islamic as a guest at one point, so that they can fully explain to us how the Islamic marriage is done, how it's conducted, the legal requirements to be legally married under the Islamic law. Then we also have the customary marriage. So this is where a person is married under the customs and the cultures of a certain tribe. In other words, if you're, let's say, Mtoro, you have your own culture, you have your own customs as a tribe. Then you look at the Banyankwele, you have the Baganda. Everyone who is married under those different kinds of tribes has their own customs and cultures, whereby when you get married in this sort of cultures, this sort of tribes, there are some customs you're going to follow. Yes. So we shall explore all these marriages and the different kinds of requirements for you to show that you're actually legally married under these sort of marriages, under these types of marriages. Yes. So like I explained, we have the church marriage, which is the monogamous marriage. We also have the civil marriage, which is also monogamous. And also we look at the polygamous marriages, and these are the Islamic marriages and the customary marriages. Yes, all those are marriages that are recognized in Uganda as legally recognized marriages. Yes. So today we're going to look specifically at the civil marriage. So if you're there and you're interested in getting married in a civil way, this show is for you today, this particular episode. However, the next time I'll make it a point to invite different guests to, for example, tell us how to get legally married in the church marriage, like the prerequisites you need, the requirements for you to be legally married under the church marriage, as well as the Islamic marriage. So people, the Muslim community out there, don't feel left out. We shall invite a special guest to explain for us, elaborate more on how the Islamic marriages are conducted. Yes, and we're also going to look at the customary marriages briefly, because these are the marriages where someone, let's say in a different culture, gets married to someone in another culture. In other words, here we have to observe the different customs and cultures that govern the tribes, in other words. Yes, unless you follow this specific. However, even before we look at the civil marriage, I want to first look at the legal person you're related to by blood. Yes, what do I mean by this? It's more like the kindred relationship. In other words, we don't encourage incest in Uganda. So you find like some cultures in other places, you can get married to your cousin, of which this is prohibited in Uganda. In other words, if you're planning to get married, make sure you do the background check with your partner, whether you're completely not related to this person. In other words, you have to make sure that you're not related by blood, and you have to see that their bloodline is different from yours, yes, for it to be recognized as legally a legal marriage. In other words, you may bring someone, especially in these customs where you see, like, if I have to give you an example, like the Buganda culture, you're actually not allowed to marry a person of the same clan. You get, eh? So in those marriages where you find you don't have any sort of relationship, yes, with this person, so keep that in mind. Yeah, so today I said we're going to look at the civil marriage, and in this marriage, for such as we have the legal requirements, and in this marriage you're going to go before a registrar. Yes, you're not going to go before a priest, you're not going to go before before your other pastor or a sheikh to get you married. This time around you're going to go to the registrar. And where is this registrar found? So the registrar, for most cases for the civil marriage here in Uganda, in Kampala, you're going to find this person at URSP.
Nga bulijjo amanya nze Kyozira William Wilberforce na Diope ku media osobola okunsangako nga Chosen K. Williams. Olunaku olwaleero ndoze era mulabaka background tusazeewo tujje tukyayireko omu ku basponsors baffe. This is none other than Outspanned Nursery and Primary School. Leero gye tuli mukimanyi bulungi nti essaawa zino eno abaana beetegekera kubeera nga baddayo ku ssomero. Kati g'omuzadde atulaba obadde awo nga weebuuza essomero kiri osobola ng'otwalako omwana wo, essomero eriyina eddiini, essomero eriyina environment, bannange ndi wane nokwira akawo manyi okubeerawo nga you breathing life tekirwana. Kati olaba nze azzeeno olunaku olumu mpulira bwe nti nga ninganga obulamu obukomyewo. Kati weewuunya omwana asiiba wano taamu namba ng'ali mu environment eri very conducive wet. The thing is very quiet. Omwana asoma ng'ebintu bikola ki biyingira buyingizi mu mutwe. Tetukomye kwawo ebisulo byombi bitunuddeko nze mwennyini mbirabye nga birungi, essomero ddungi, abasomesa awo wayiyamuko ninga olaba bambi omuntu kyayogera akyogera asinziira ku ekyo ky'amanyi nga profession amanyi okusomesa. So olunaku olwaleero tuli ku Outspanned tuli eno tubagamba omuzadde oli eyo omwana tobonaabona kunoonya kifo kyogenda mutwalamu. Muleete wano ku Outspanned Nursery and Primary School eri eno Gayaza Namulonge Road oba wakayita kwawo ku highway katono branch akatono boti kasotuke Namulonge gwe buuza Outspanned kuba buli omu bagimanyi era abantu b'e Namulonge bonna beewayo okubeera nga abaana baleeta wano. Kati naawe oli eyo oli mu town omwana oyagamuleeta mu kifo nga kirungi ng'agenda kuvayo ng'ategedde kye basomesa eddiini. Kalibe basiraamu, kalibe bakatuliki, kalibe baani bonna wane eddiini lyonna liri welcome. Era abaana basaba, abasaala ne basaala, abasiiba ne basiiba, abalokole ne basa byonna. Naye ng'ekisinga obukulu nti omwana agenda ovaawo ng'abanguddwa ekyo kyennyini kyaba yeetaaga okubeera ng'akola ki ng'ategeera. Sigenda suukawo ojja kukugamba nti leeta omwana wo ku Outspanned Nursery and Primary School babeere nga bamuvangula afuuke omuntu ow'ekimmemmette, afuuke omuntu ow'obuvunaanyizibwa. Musibe bulungi, mweraba.
Kuva mu YPA. Brought by Outspanned Day and Boarding Primary School, Gayaza Namulonge.
Hello and welcome back from our short break. Yes, as we were earlier explaining, we're looking at the different kinds of requirements for you to get married, and this is under the civil marriage in particular. So for the civil marriage, like I had explained, first of all, you have to be 18 years and above, 18 years of age and above, and you also have to be a person who is of who can consent, and you have to be a man and woman for you people to get married. In other words, for example, in the Baganda, according to their customs and cultures, you're not supposed to marry someone of the same clan. Yes, and the other thing about the civil marriages, in this same way, you also have to be a person who is not married to someone else, because this is a monogamous marriage. In other words, if you said you you went for a customary marriage with Betty, for example, and then here you are, you're saying you want to marry Jane, that marriage will not be recognized as a valid marriage in the civil marriages, because under civil marriage, it's a monogamous marriage. You're only supposed to be married to one person. So if it's Betty, let it be marriage with Betty. And if it's Jane, let it be marriage with Jane. To look at the different legal requirements that will enable you to get married in civil marriage. Like I said, this is a marriage that's conducted before a registry of marriages, and this person's office is located at the Uganda Registration of Services Bureau, and that's URSB. And if you're out up country, let's say in districts like Bushenyi, or in districts like Bundibujo, you're in Nakapiripiti or Obulambuli, you're going to go before the cow, and this is the chief administrative officer. Yes, you're going to go to the district, and they're going to give you that sort of guidance you need to get married under the civil marriage in that sort of area, in the whichever district you'll be in. In other words, you don't even have to come to Kampala to get married under the civil marriage. So what are the requirements that are needed for you to be legally married under the civil marriage? For starters, number one, you have to be a citizen of Uganda. In other words, you may not also be a citizen of Uganda. However, you have to have the following requirements. For starters, if you're a citizen of Uganda, you need that identification to show that you're actually a citizen of Uganda, because the different dynamics when it comes to the foreign person who wants to get married under the civil marriage and a person who is already a citizen of Uganda. So for starters, if you're a Ugandan, I'm going to break down the steps that you're going to take and the requirements that you'll need for you to get married under the civil marriage. Yes, like I said, you go before a registrar of marriages to conduct this particular marriage. So if you're Ugandan, for starters, you'll need your national identification card. Yes, it's the one that's going to show your identity as a Ugandan. So you have to make sure that you carry a copy of your national ID. Yes. And if you're getting married to a foreigner, for example, the foreigner has to carry a passport, because it's the one that shows their identity. It's the one that brings out who they are, their identification. And then you also have to have an LC letter. And what do I mean by this? This letter is the one that's going to show that for you to actually go ahead and get married in this particular area. So if, let's say, you're in this division, you go to your LC chairperson, they write for you that letter to show that you've been a resident for this particular period of time, for 15 days or whichever days. So like I mentioned, your national ID, you also need this recommendation letter from your local council chairperson to show that you've been in this area for at least 15 days, situated in this particular area. Then the other requirement that you need is your passport photo. So you need the groom's passport photo, and also for the bride. So you carry those passport photos. Then also you're going to swear as per an affidavit. As per Section 10 of the Marriage Act, you're supposed to swear an affidavit that shows that you're actually you're not married, you're a single person. Because like I mentioned, for a civil marriage, it's between a person who has not married some other person. It's between two people. That's man and woman, and these people should not be married. So let's say in this case you've been divorced and you also want to remarry or get married again. In this particular case, you have to present the divorce certificate. That's the divorce decree absolute, that shows that you're now a very single person. You're no longer married to the other person. You'll present your divorce certificate. And then we have parties where your partner died and you're now a widow or a widower. For this particular cases, you're going to present the death certificate as proof that you're no longer married. As you know the saying, till death does you part. So in this case where you lost your loved one and you're now looking forward to get remarried, that's where you're going to present this death certificate to actually prove that this person is single and they are not married with someone else. Yes. Then the other requirement is like I mentioned, the passport photo. Then you also have to carry that affidavit that person has to swear before a commissioner for oaths, because they have to prove that actually they are single. That's when this person, the commissioner for oaths, will put a stamp to actually affirm that this person is a single person. Yes, that affidavit is very crucial in among your requirements. Then we also have a person who is a foreigner, and let's say you're Ugandan and you're going to marry someone abroad. So this person also has to get certificate of registration, civil, from the certificate, or a letter, a recommendation letter from their civil registration in their country, because this is a letter that shows that this person is single, and they're in their country, they're recognizing this person as a single person who has never been married before. So that document is very vital for especially the foreigners. If you're Ugandan, you only get an affidavit which you'll sign and it's commissioned. So, and if you're marrying a foreigner, that person has to present valid visas. In other words, they have to show how they are in the country legally. So they have to present those valid visas as a requirement, the copies of the valid visas of how they entered the country, because you're not going to marry someone who is illegal in the country. So make sure that these people have those valid visas before you get married to them. Otherwise, the marriage will not be recognized as a valid or legal marriage. Yes, so my people out there getting married, please put that in mind. Then another requirement, if you're getting married to a foreigner, for example, you're going to go to these offices. Let's say you go to URSB or you go to their platform on their website. You're going to find that Form A. That Form A is more of a notice of marriage, and this notice has to be filled in by one of the spouses, the parties who are going to get married. So in other words, this form is going to include the people who are going to get married, where their nationality, and their different addresses, where they're located, they're situated, their families, so that you ascertain how old they are. On this form, it shows how old you are. All that information you have to fill in. It has to show the other person what their age as well. Then also their background, their families, because they have, like I mentioned, you're not supposed to be related to this particular person. So in other words, this notice, when you register it at URSB, it's going to be placed on in the book of the notices of marriage, because when you fill in this form and present it before URSB, they have to notify the masses, they have to notify the world that these two people are planning to get married. Yes, and this notice will run for a period of 21 days, because someone may come claiming, no, this is my husband, who is actually trying to get married elsewhere. Like I mentioned, for the civil marriage, it's crucial that you have one partner. In other words, if someone else comes claiming that you are actually married to them customarily, your marriage will not be recognized under the law. So in other words, so when you present this notice, it's going to be placed on the notice boards of URSB or the district where you're coming from and want to conduct the marriage. It will be placed there for a period of 21 days, so that in case someone comes claiming that you're actually someone else's partner, that can be put in that can be done away with, or someone can bring proof that maybe you are married to this person, so that even before they conduct the marriage, all those precautions have been followed. So before you get married, you have to make sure that that notice is placed with URSB. Otherwise, your marriage will not be recognized for a period of 21 days. So it's after those 21 days that you're actually going to go through with the marriage. So the registrar is going to wed you people. So you also have to have 2 witnesses. Yes, people of mature age. Yes, don't bring a toddler, a 5-year-old, and say, this is my witness for this marriage. That person will not be accepted as a witness. So these people have to be of mature age, 18 years and above. They have to have their identity cards with them for them to show how old they are, whether they are people of capacity to actually be witnesses to your marriage. With that notice, that notice of marriage, which is the Form A, which is a form that's filled in when you take your documents to URSB for you to actually conduct a valid civil marriage. So when all those documents are ready and you've put them together, your passport photos, each and everything that's required, you're going to go to URSB and you're going to have to pay a registration fee. Yes, you have to pay. Ugandan or you're national, you have to pay a fee of 260,000. Yes, for just a fee of 260,000, you'll be legally married. You don't have to go through the expenditures. I hear you have to pay the dowry, you have to pay the what. So in other words, if you're on a tight budget, at just a fee of 260,000, such a small price. In other words, if you're there with your partner and you feel economically challenged or financially challenged at the moment and you really want to go into the institution of marriage, you just have to go through the civil marriage, which is really a very formal, very economical sort of marriage. It has to be just two consenting adults of 18 years and above. And you're not related by blood, like I mentioned, and you've not been married before, because under this marriage, you can only be married to one person. Yes. So for the civil marriage, you have to do is come that D-Day. You have to come between the hours of 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Above those hours, you're not going to be wedded. In other words, you have to come between those set periods of time. You come with your loved ones, your family, and you also have to come with the witnesses, like I mentioned, because these are the people who are going to sign on your marriage certificate that, yes, we are present when these people are getting married. Yes, so you have to follow all those requirements for your marriage to be considered valid. And please be sure about the legal procedures to take for your marriage to be legally recognized. Yes, I'm sure people out there, you've been there, you don't know that you can actually get married in a very simple and cheap way. Yes, you don't even have to go, I hear, bring tokens of this, like dowry, I hear, bring things in bulk, let's say the sodas, the sacks of sugar. So in other words, it's more like a consensual agreement between you two parties for you to say, this is the time to say I do, and you'll live happily ever after. So the next time we come back on our show, we're going to discuss all things church marriage. Yes, we are going to have someone who has conducted a church marriage who is going to give us more information on how they conduct these marriages and the requirements you need to undergo this sort of marriage. Yes, I promise you will not regret joining us for that particular show. It will be very informative. In case you're out there, you're like, no, for me, I'll feel legally married if I've gone for a church wedding. So please don't miss that particular episode the next time you're here with us. People who are planning to say I do, hope this information is taken. And in case of any questions, inquiries about how these marriages are conducted, the civil marriages, please feel free to put a comment down there. I'll be available to answer those particular questions. Yes, I promise a person who will give us more information to elaborate more on how the Islamic marriages are conducted, and also our Muslim community, our Muslim brothers and sisters out there. Please feel free to join us on that particular episode, and even everyone out there. Yes. Then the other thing I wanted to discuss more, or maybe if I had left it out, I want to point out on the civil marriage is that also foreigners, you can also get married under this civil marriage. It's not necessarily for the Ugandan citizen. So if you're here and you, let's say, came to Uganda for work, or maybe you're a refugee, or yes, you can also go ahead and conduct a civil marriage if you're planning to get married to your partner for the rest of your lives. So what you do is you also carry your identification cards, yes, or maybe your passports, yes, and then that shows that you've actually been residing in Uganda for at least 15 days in that particular area. Then you're also going to swear an affidavit you're still sharing this affidavit show you're single, you're a person who has never been in a marriage before. And then you also have to have your valid visas. Yes, a copy of your valid visas, how you came into Uganda, because if you're illegally in Uganda, at least first go through the right procedures to be recognized as a valid migrant of Uganda, migrant of Uganda. So you have to carry that as well. Then you also have to fill in that Form A. Like I mentioned, it's a notice of marriage, because it's going to alert the world out there. People out there who know you, maybe they can say both parties are related by blood. In other words, that's why the notice is on board, like for the 21 days, to make sure that you're not related by blood. And in other words, you're not people who are of the same clan. Yes. So those 21 days are there to notify the people out there, the masses, that you've never been married before, because someone can come and actually claim that you've been married to them. So make sure that you have that, you fill in that Form A and you attach it with all the documents that you need. So let's say you've been divorced, or you lost your loved one. Yes, you also have to carry the divorce certificate. That's the divorce decree absolute. In other words, that shows that your previous marriage was dissolved. In other words, like you're no longer with this other person. Because if for civil marriages, you have to be with one partner. And for the person who lost their loved ones, unfortunately, for you, all you have to carry is the death certificate. Yes, so you attach all those documents as mentioned. Then you attach the Form A. Then you also have to pay a fee. I believe it's most likely around your $200 for you to get legally married under the civil marriage. So you can go to the URSB website. They'll give you the specific prices. Let's say you're a foreigner, for you to get married. So really don't miss out on that vital information. Yes, as we're in this month of love, let me encourage you, before you say I do, to know the marriage you're entering and the prerequisites that show that this is a valid. But before you say I do at the altar, do you know the law that governs marriage? Catch this and more on Legal Matters on YPA TV with me, Cancionissima Gloria. See you there. Everyone, and welcome back to the show where we talk about all things legal. All the people where, if it's your first time here, you're most welcome. And please subscribe and share this. Please comment. We thank you, everyone who views this show, who comments. We talk about everything love, because love is in the air. I believe for most of you out there, you're planning to propose to your loved one, or you're there setting your date of marriage. So today, we're going to talk about all things love and marriage. Yes, thank you for coming. So today on our show, we're going to look at the Marriage Act. Yes, we're going to look at the Marriage Act, and we're going to talk about the law that governs marriage. If you're out there and you didn't know that marriage is governed by the law, we have so many laws that handle marriage, that govern marriage. Yes. So here we can look at the Constitution itself, the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. We also have the Marriage Act. Yes, we have the Divorce Act, for those of you who didn't know. We have very many categories of laws that handle marriage. Yes, so for today, we're going to look at the Marriage Act. So if you're out there and you're planning to propose to your loved one, you're planning to say I do at the altar, today this is your show. So, marriage. What are we going to look at in marriage? Marriage, for starters, we have to know what is marriage. Yes. And marriage is defined as, if you look at the case of Hyde versus Hyde, which is a famous case, it defines marriage as the voluntary union between one man and one woman, to the exclusion of all the others. In other words, if you're one man you're one woman and you decide to enter a marriage, it's more like a contract where you consent, it's consensual. This sort of contract has to come with both parties coming, agreeing to this, consenting to this sort of marriage. So it's more like a consensual contract between these two parties, and these two parties are a one man and one woman. Yes, the exclusion of others. In other words, for it to be actually recognized as a valid marriage, you have to be one man and one woman. So keep that in mind. So we've defined what marriage is. So if you're out there and you're in this sort of relationship where you're still seeing other people, in other words, that's not really a marriage. A marriage is where you both parties agree to be in this sort of relationship to the exclusion of all the other people. So keep watch of that. And then who can marry? Maybe out there you're 12 years old, maybe out there and you're 20, or you may be 50. So we want to know today, who can marry? So in the Constitution of Uganda, that's under Article 31 of the Constitution, it clearly says that a man and woman above